Hey everybody, welcome back to Jeff Bowles Central. Well, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle finally hit the old Xbox Game Pass just a couple months ago, and you know what? Jeff Bowles Central gave it a really good score. It's a 9 out of 10 game. If you want to call it a 10 out of 10 game, you are certainly able to call it a 10 out of 10 game. I'm not going to argue with you, man. But what if I told you that it is not the first excellent Xbox Indiana Jones game? In fact, what if I told you that if we took a trip in the old way back again, the old way back time machine, there was an Indiana Jones game 22 years ago that was fantastic. What if I told you that? Maybe that's overselling it. It was okay. It was a pretty... I thought I'd do a retro roundup gaming segment for you guys. Basically, you know, it's a retro roundup, man. Let's take an old retro video game, and I tell you if it still holds up, if you should play it ever, if you should leave it alone, if you should never think about it ever again.
I wish I knew how to quit you.
Then why don't you?
And the reason Indiana Jones here pops up is because there's the new indie game. For the current generation, the new stuff.
My new girlfriend. New.
I really liked Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. I thought it was pretty good. I was kind of skeptical of the first-person approach at first, but I think it paid off for Bethesda. In fact, I think they kind of managed to pull off a little bit of a minor Lucasfilm gaming masterpiece here with this game. Troy Baker, at least. Troy Baker is excellent in it, okay? At least for that. And you know what? Even though it is first-person, not third-person, it could be easily considered a modern successor, a modern, awesome, next-gen successor to this little gem. This is Indiana Jones and the the Emperor's Tomb, and this was on PlayStation 2. This was on the original Xbox. This was on PC. So whoever you are, you have a chance to play it, or you did at that time. And it's made by LucasArts, and it's one of the last great games that LucasArts made before falling apart, and then the Disney buyout and everything. And Disney is struggling right now figuring out how to use the Lucasfilm license exactly as the fans would have it, because EA gave us the Battlefront games, it gave us Jedi Fallen Order, and those are okay games, but I also kind of see what the fans are always complaining about on certain aspects. And I have to say, like, Lucasfilm, for some reason they only care about Star Wars. Like, Disney buys Lucasfilm, and the first thing they do is start production on a bunch of Star Wars projects.
Ray Skywalker.
Nothing for indie for the longest time. And now finally we've gotten the Dial of Destiny movie, which some people liked, some people didn't. I thought it was all right. And we have gotten Great Circle, but this is a thing. This was a game that aspired to tell a new indie story before we had new indie stories. Back then, LucasArts, which was a subsidiary, like a small group offshoot from the larger Lucasfilm, they understood that in order to bring indie to life, there was certain things that you would need to have. And don't get me wrong, Bethesda has understood and interpreted these things in their own way as well. They kind of nailed it just as well as LucasArts did back in 2002. For instance, certain indie mainstays like the Whip. You need the whip to cross chasms. You also need the whip to whip people. Because funnily enough, that's what whips are for, whipping things and whipping people and whip. And the thing about that whip is it better damn well sound like the whip in the movies, which is always like just the most amazing noise you've ever heard, just incredibly loud. And they did. They went into the sound archives at Lucasfilm, and they pulled all the samples out that they would have used in a movie. The story tries, but the voice acting lets you down. The guy who plays Harrison Ford here doesn't sound anything like Harrison Ford. It's definitely one area where Bethesda and Troy Baker have a leg up, a giant fedora wearing leg up. Like I looked at a bunch of old reviews of this game, and they were like, "Oh, he sounds like Harrison Ford." No, he doesn't. But that's okay, Harrison Ford's expensive, right? We don't put him in a video game necessarily. What else do you need in order to make it feel like a good indie game? Well, you need to have some fisticuffs. In fact, most of the fighting that he's going to be doing should be like fist fighting, because that's indie. And you're going to have some realistic weapons. And those two are going to have to sound like they come straight from an indie film. So what I'm saying is that LucasArts really keyed in on, okay, how do we make the player feel like Indiana Jones? And I think for the most part they were successful. This game doesn't hold up very well. You know, the camera is always a mess. It's always showing what you don't want. Movement is a mess. You know, there's a lot of platforming in this game. Too much platforming. You know, agreed, Indy does do some real like platforming type stuff in the movies, but it's mostly platforms, and he's just not precise enough. Wielding him as you would a character from a dedicated platformer, it's no comparison. He overshoots his mark when he jumps. He undershoots it. You know, you're never really pointing in the right direction. It can be a bit of a mess, so it can be a little frustrating, but by no means is it unplayable. Like I said, LucasArts, because they were owned by George Lucas himself and began under his directive, they always really cared about the authenticity of the experience, and you have definitely played better platformer or third-person action games. Even from that era, there are better ones, but this is a rare one, and you know, like I said, authenticity is kind of the key to it. So here's what I would say about Indiana Jones and the Emperor's Groove.
Boom, baby! Your Highness.
How the Emperor got his groove back. Here's what I would say about it. If you're looking for something that is authentic to indie, that is retro, because you don't have any other choices, this is really the only really great example of an Indiana Jones game, then look no further than this game, because it's going to have everything you want. It's not a perfect mixture, and it isn't new and flashy and bright like Great Circle tends to be. A little bit too video gamey at times, if you can believe that, as far as like the choices that they make for being able to, you know, scale buildings, or I don't know. They almost got it. They almost nailed it with this game. I think you should play it. I think you should. Retro Roundup, play it!
Sire!
That's it for Jeff Bowles. That's it for Jeff Bowles Central. Like, subscribe, kick a duck across the road and make it quack. I have subscribed. I don't really know what that means. I don't know what I'm saying. Whoosh.